Our news understands the International Olympic Committee is moving towards a blanket ban on transgender women from women's sport.
The decision to overhaul the current policy was made after the sporting committee carried out a science-based review. It was a very scientific, factual, and unemotional presentation, which quite clearly laid out the evidence.
The UK Times reported that today the initial findings of the review had concluded, and I quote, "Scientific evidence showed there were physical advantages to being born male that remained with athletes, including those who had taken treatment to reduce testosterone levels."
Breaking news! Men and women are different, and when it comes to sports, men have an unfair advantage over women. Who knew? They needed to spend millions of dollars to get the evidence that a 5-year-old would know if you just open your eyes. Let's talk about the Olympics banning trans athletes from the women's category. So, surprise, the Olympics have decided, having men compete with women in sports may be unfair. Now, if you watch this channel, my top video, 8.7 million views or something like that, is about a biological man breaking the women's world record in weightlifting. And the reason why is because a trans athlete broke the women's world record. So the guy who was training the women in weightlifting said, "This is BS." He then identified as a woman, went and shattered the record, and then all hell broke loose.
A man identified as a female at a powerlifting competition, and what happened next was just insane. Avi Silverberg, the head coach for Canada's women's powerlifting team, had been coaching for a decade and was frustrated. He watched as his students kept losing to a trans woman named Anne Andres. Anne had set a bench press record of 275 pounds and was mocking Avi's students for having a weak bench press. Avi was enraged and wanted to defend his students, so he decided to compete as a female. He set his pronouns to "whatever lets me win" and checked off the female category. With Anne watching closely, Avi started by benching 320 pounds with ease. Avi was feeling strong and loaded up for a final attempt of 369 pounds. The weight still quickly exploded off his chest. Anne was furious and called Avi a coward with malicious intent. "Whatever let me win's record is still in the books today. Who do you think is in the right?"
So yeah, Avi has the Canadian record in women's bench press. Now here's a quick message from the sponsor of this video, Crypto.com. And you guys gotta remember, I am Nate the lawyer, not Nate the finance guy. Nothing here is financial advice. Always do your own research before investing. Let's be clear, cryptocurrency isn't coming, it's already here. And this next move made it official. Now, Trump Media has just signed a massive $6.4 billion deal with Yorkville Acquisition Group and Crypto.com. Yeah, that Crypto.com. The platform is trusted by millions of users worldwide. Now, here's the big play. They're teaming up to scoop up billions of CRO. That's the token powering Crypto.com's entire ecosystem. Fast transactions, low fees, and even real-world perks like cash back when you spend. So the goal, build America's first CRO treasury called the Trump Media Group CRO strategy. And when all is said and done, this new company becomes the largest publicly traded CRO holder in the world. Head to Crypto.com today to make crypto great again. Now this segment is sponsored by Crypto.com. Nothing here is financial advice. Always do your own research before investing. Now, back to the madness. Now, I have a ton of transgender friends who don't talk to me anymore because of how I feel about this issue in particular. Now, they'll watch this video and call me a transphobe, but I want the people who are looking for the evidence to see exactly what's going on here. So let's start at the beginning. So let me take it back to 1977, a very good year. This is Renee Richards. She's a transgender woman and she sued to play in the women's division of the US Open, and she won that lawsuit.
In 1977, Renee Richards' slice serve took her to the US Open doubles final, after she'd ignited a controversy over gender and elite sport.
25 players had withdrawn to protest the entry of the former Richard Raskin.
I have mixed emotions. I mean, I felt like, no, she shouldn't be able to enter, but at the same time she's in, so why not play her?
Now, the question has always been the same. Just because someone presents themselves or feels like they're a woman doesn't mean they actually are a woman. Because being a man has some physical advantages that Mother Nature bestows upon men. Here are some of those advantages.
During male puberty, Testosterone drives the development of bigger muscles with more fast-twitching fibers, sturdier bones, and a larger heart and lungs. All lifelong advantages when it comes to speed and strength. The difference between boys' and girls' running times increases in adolescence, and the gap is even bigger for jumping events. And in 2019, among top athletes, around 2,000 men finished the 100 meters more quickly than the fastest woman.
So on average, males have 45% more lean body mass, 33% more lower muscle mass, and 40% more upper body muscle mass. Men naturally have more muscle strength, longer bone lengths, like in your arms and legs, 83% more force in their tendons, and as we briefly mentioned earlier, increased respiratory and lung functions, as well as enhanced cardiac function.
Because to be completely honest, men are on average 5 or 6 inches taller than women. Men way more. We're faster. In terms of upper body strength, we have about 75% more upper body muscle mass and about 90% more upper body strength than women. So we're gonna have competitive advantages against women.
Because of biological differences, which is why males and females typically compete in separate sporting events. Males just naturally have an athletic advantage based on their development. When looking at elite male athletes versus elite female athletes, adolescent schoolboys outperformed elite female adult athletes. So kids who are just going through puberty, boys specifically, can outperform grown women.
Now I know your first question should be, so why do we need a study? Why are we arguing about this? This is so obvious. Matter of fact, elite athletes have been saying this for years. Here is the greatest women tennis player ever.
Well, actually, it's funny because Andy Murray, he was been joking about myself and him playing a match, and I'm like, Andy, seriously, like, are you kidding me? Because for me, tennis and men's tennis and women's tennis are completely almost two separate sports. So I'm like, if I were to play Andy Murray, I would lose 6-0, 6-0 in 5 to 6 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because it's true. It's true. It's a completely. It's a completely different sport. The men are a lot faster, and they serve harder, they hit harder. It's just a different game, and I love to play women's tennis, and I only want to play girls because I don't want to be embarrassed. I would not do the tour. I wouldn't do Billie Jean any justice. So Andy, stop it. Yeah. I'm not gonna let you kill me.
And even in the United States, we passed a law called Title IX that protects women's sports from allowing men to compete with women. But then we had what I like to call the woke revolution. And specifically when it comes to transgender issues, the mantra was that trans women are real women. You've heard that all over the place. Now, even though that's nice to say, what does that really mean in the real world? So what we're told is that if a man wants to be called a female pronoun, a female name, or even use female bathrooms, it's acceptable socially. But transgender advocates went the next level. They said, no, when we say trans women are real women, we mean in every aspect. So, for instance, when trans women want to go to doctors, they are physically men, but they're suing gynecologists because gynecologists are saying, hey, I don't treat men. And like this one in France said, a cavity is not a vagina. And this doctor says, I only treat women. And unfortunately, you don't have the equipment of a woman. You got the equipment of a man.
Let's expose the woke agenda. This one's crazy. Everyone's having their breakfast. So I'm gonna keep this a little general, but I saw this on social media. A man demanding to see a gynecologist and saying it was hard to do that, to examine what people on social media are calling his non-existent vagina. That's what they're saying. But he's crying about it. Listen to the soundbite.
Appointment because I need to be checked. You know, I mean, they got to use curriculum. They've got to take a sample, that type of thing, check for tears, blah, 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 right? I mean, makes sense. And so what they had said to me is like, well, we don't do that here. And I'm like, but you're a gynecologist office. Why wouldn't you? Well, we don't treat trans patients. So you're discriminating against me is what you're telling me. You know? My female doctor in Toronto would have taken you in a heartbeat. Damn. Yeah, I am pretty, you know, it's so hard to find a gynecologist that can like even work with me, you know, and I don't understand it.
So he's going to a doctor who only treats women and saying, work with me. Like, you're a man. How can I work with you? So I've shown all that to show the level of delusion that we're at, right? Even to the point where now if you just say, hey, I feel like a woman, but I was born a man, I was raised a man, I am a man, but I want to be treated as a woman, that means even going to a gynecologist. So there's obviously pushback everywhere. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, why aren't we just holding on to scientific reality? We understand how people feel, but that's not reality, right? Now, those who advocate on behalf of transgender athletes always said one thing. After someone transitions from, let's say, male to female, there is no scientific evidence that shows they retain a physical advantage.
On the face of it, it seems simple as you say. You know, if somebody identifies as a woman, if they're transgender, they can compete against women who were born biologically, and then if not, then not. But then there are many who would argue who are not transphobes. There are many who born biologically women who will say, but you have an unnatural advantage over me, and that makes the sport unfair. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, there's lots of ways you can respond to that. So the first is the very language of you were born and I'm not biological somehow, like I don't think I'm a cyborg. So like this idea that like, oh, you're not a biological woman. Well, I am a woman, that's a fact. I am female, so all my identity records, my racing license, my medical records all say female, right? And I'm pretty sure I'm made of biological stuff, so I'm a biological female as well. So this question of, do trans women have an advantage over cis women? We don't know. In fact, there's basically no published research on this question. However, there's good reason to think that there isn't, but I think it's irrelevant because we allow all kinds of competitive advantages within women's sport.
Now, because I'm thorough, I found a clip of a trans advocate explaining that there is scientific evidence to show that after a man transitions into a woman, he actually has a body of a woman and should be able to compete with women because he loses all his advantages of being a man.
So the next question becomes, does this debate have any merit? In order to answer this, let's give an example. Let's say someone was born with male genitals and they later identify as a female, so they want to compete in women's sporting programs. Transphobic people will say they have an advantage against other girls because they still have a male body. They'll even come up with bogus stories and make sad little bogus videos about it thanks to hate groups like this.
The night before a big race, my parents told me that a biological male who identifies as a girl would be competing in my race the next day. On the bus heading to the event, our coach also gave me the news. I didn't have much time before the race to process what this might mean, but I had plenty of time to process it afterward. Since 2017, the two biological male runners who have competed in girls' high school track in Connecticut have won 15 women's track championship titles. Titles that were held by 9 different girls in 2016. 4 of those state championship titles should have been mine.
But that's not entirely true. Studies have shown that trans women who are born with male bodies are more likely to have less body mass and strength compared to cisgender boys. So while yes, they are born with male genitalia, the rest of their body is far from male to begin with, and more closely resembles the body mass and strength of a woman. The same goes for trans boys. When they are born, they do have a vagina, but the rest of their body is built with more bone density and strength, meaning their body is built more like a male body than a woman's body. Sure, on the outside, they might have a vagina and breast, but on the inside, look at their muscles and bones, and you'll realize they are more close to males than female.
So now we have advocates on the right side of the aisle saying, hey, we know that men and women can't compete in sports together because of the unfair advantages men hold. We've known this since caveman day. And we have the newer arguments from the transgender advocates saying, no, that's not the case. They're actually equal. Matter of fact, let me dumb this down even more. One side screams discrimination discrimination and transphobia. The other side screams science, facts, and evidence. All right, so fast forward to what's going on now. So the Olympic Committee, being called racist and transphobic, they had to now pay millions of dollars to do a study to say what we've already known for millions of years. Biological men have unfair advantages when competing against biological women, and on top of that, that those advantages don't just disappear because you say you're a woman, or even if you're on hormone-suppressing therapy.
The sporting committee carried out a science-based review of a biologically born male's permanent physical advantages, the sources said. The findings were presented by the IOC's medical and scientific director, Dr. Jane Thornton, in a closed-door meeting last week. It was a very scientific, factual, and unemotional presentation, which quite clearly laid out the evidence, a source told the outlet.
That today, the initial findings of the review had concluded, and I quote, "Scientific evidence showed there were physical advantages to being born male that remained with athletes, including those who had taken treatment to reduce testosterone levels."
Now, because of these findings, the Olympic Committee has decided to, hey, we're going to ban biological men or transgender athletes from competing in the women's category. That doesn't mean they cannot compete. They can compete in the men's category, which is open to anybody, women, men, whoever. But they want to compete in the women's category, which is protected, which the IOC is saying that's not going to happen because now we have the scientific evidence to show that it's unfair.
The International Olympic Committee is reportedly set to ban transgender athletes from competing in all women's sporting events.
But it's not yet clear if the new rule will take effect before the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy.
Celebrity fitness trainer Jillian Michaels joins us now. Jillian, what's your opinion?
About time? It's ridiculous, and I want to commend them for taking this step, so I don't want to be too bitchy about this. But the reality is, we're not sure. We had to conduct a study to see if this is fair and safe, and, we're reviewing it. We're going to get back to you guys. It's like, are you joking? Anybody with a pair of eyes knows that men have better athleticism across every modality of fitness. So I'm thrilled that you got here, but you tortured people like Riley Gaines for the past 5 years. So maybe an apology to those ladies would be lovely, or the women that got punched in the face at the Olympics in Paris by a biological male. That would also be nice.
All right, so that's the video. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section. If you believe this whole video is propaganda like some of the transgender advocates are going to say, point to here where I'm wrong. Or if you agree or disagree with these sentiments. Bottom line here is sanity eventually won out. And that's my opinion. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, do all that great YouTube stuff. If you like this video, you got to hit the subscribe button. My name is Nate the Lawyer. I'm out. Peace.